All right, it is Law 2020. Yeah, we're keeping it going. A lot of energy today from the phones, a lot of energy on the text. This is Boyette, Cummins, and Nalos putting it all together, the BCN law firm, Law 2020. This law firm has offices in Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and the Villages, and they have my good friend Wade Boyette, who's been around this area for so many years. Matter of fact, all of the associates at BCN Law Firm are active in their community, active in the schools, very active in leadership of the community. And so they're the same people. You'll see them in court, but you'll see them in Publix too. Or is it Whole Foods? Whichever it is. Wade Boyette's with me today. You've got questions of a legal nature. Give us a call at 855-297-9696. That's our toll-free line for you. You power the show, 855-297-9696. You can simply text us at 21232, 21232. And by way of explanation, the texting is like this. All you need to do is pull out your smartphone, go to the messaging feature, and where it says contact, put 21232. You know, something else that you all show me that you use all week with Joe Kelly on the news is you use that open mic. Well, you can use the open mic on the all-new News 96.5 app, and you could ask your question to Wade that way, and you'd get to hear your voice on the air. You get to have your question asked without you having to hold on to the phone line. Tim is pushing all the right buttons. He's taking all the right calls across from me in the studio today on kind of a this day in Central Florida. Here's Wade Boyette. What's going on, buddy?
Nothing much, Rob. Enjoying a great day of football yesterday. Looking for another great day of football today. Staying inside, staying out of this nasty weather.
It's terrible out there, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, we say terrible. Other parts of the country are really suffering.
I know. I talked to all my friends up north, and, this is Florida cold. 70-degree weather and rainy.
Mm-hmm. We don't like that, a little rain in the afternoon, not too bad. I imagine that now that the new year has started, that there's an awful lot of people who have decided to get their act together, go over their wills, their testaments, their paperwork, their corporate papers, their structures, and really try to get everything in line. But arguably also, we did a show a few weeks ago about people starting new businesses. Is January kind of a big kickoff for that? Is that kind of the time that people go, yeah, I've had enough of the boss. He's had enough of me. We don't get along. So why don't I try the water on my own?
It is. A lot of people also wait and file in January because if you file in December, you're going to have to file another annual fee pretty quickly. So, it saves a little money. If you're planning on starting a business at the end of December, a lot of times I encourage my clients, let's just wait until January 1st or let's have a January 1st effective date so we don't have those. One of the things I am seeing, Robin, I'd like to discuss a little bit today, everyone starts the new year off wanting a fresh start. Yeah. And they go in, they have their resolutions, and then unfortunately certain things just seem to follow them. Mm-hmm. And what I'm seeing, and I had several clients come in last week, actually one of the clients came in from the show, and what's happening are people who've forgotten that they had a house foreclosed or they did a short sale are now getting these nasty little letters in the mail where banks are seeking deficiencies. And there's a group out of Texas who's doing this, a lot, is they're sending my clients notices saying, you still owe $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. What are we going to do to collect that money?
That'll ruin your day. I mean, really.
And it does. And, we spoke last week about, them extending the tax relief for homestead, but we didn't cover, what happens if it's not homestead. And a lot of my clients are also getting 1099s, and they're coming in and saying, what do I do with this 1099-C? How does this affect me? So I'm seeing that a lot. If you're going to get a fresh start, make it a fresh start. Make it, where you don't have to look over your shoulder 2 or 3, 4, 5 years.
Aren't there different types of those 1099s? That one, it is forgiven, the other it's not forgiven. What's the differentiation in the lettering?
There's a 1099-A and a 1099-C.
Right.
The 1099-C is the one where they say your debt's forgiven. Here's something, and I'll go over this with the listeners because I had this question come up twice recently. And if you research it, it's really hard to find a definitive answer. Mm-hmm. And that is, if a bank sends you a 1099-C, and what that 1099-C is letting the IRS know that the bank's forgiven the debt. I've had banks sell that paper to a collection company, and then the collection company sues on the debt, and the client calls me and says, how can they sue when they've forgiven the debt? And unfortunately, one's a tax issue and one's a contract issue. And so the creditor can still sue on that contract issue. And so I've saw that come up twice this week where they didn't know. What happens is if the bank collects, you have to reverse their transaction on the 1099-C. The client then, he can go get a refund if they included the 1099-C income in their income. They can go and file an amended tax return, and also the lender has to file an amended tax return and correct it. But
all right. We do have a couple of calls, and we want to thank you for helping us the show. And let's go to Chuck first. Chuck, what is your question, please?
Wade, can you tell me a senior that's got, who's in their 80s, it's got a value of their estate of somewhere around $5 million. Is there any possibility that you would recommend for them not to set up a trust?
There is, Chuck. I mean, what I tell people, it's not just age, it's not just value of assets, but it's also what type of asset do you own? For example, if you came into my office and said, Wade, I have no assets but an IRA, and the IRA is $5 million, I would say, let's not set up a trust. We could do it through a beneficiary designation. Or if it was life insurance. So it depends, or an annuity, for example. It depends on the type of asset as well as the value of the asset.
His assets are spread all over the place, including real estate, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, IRAs, CDs. He is well spread out as far as spread of risk.
Being here in Florida, where probate is an issue, or, it's really talked about a lot, I would definitely recommend a trust in that situation, especially at his age and the type of assets you're describing. We, now luckily we don't have an estate tax issue that we really have to plan for because they raised the, applicable credit amount over $5 million. So we wouldn't have to do a lot of sophisticated tax planning, but we could make his estate where it would not be subject to probate if he passed away. And I tell people this, probate's it's something we want to avoid. But what we really want to avoid is having to set up a guardianship for him. Life planning is just as important as death planning. And if the client became incapacitated, we would have to go set up a guardianship if he did not have a trust, or possibly set up a guardianship. So, yeah, I think a trust is a great idea.
Just real quick, what type of trust would you normally recommend, and how much do you charge to set one up?
Okay, I would recommend a revocable trust. And again, we'd go through. When I do my estate planning, I try to take a holistic approach. I want to really get to know the client, what his wishes, what his desires are. But from what you're telling me, it seems like a pretty simple revocable trust, and a cost on that is around $1,200.
Okay, and you said that you did not want to set up, what sort of a thing was it you did not want to set up? You wanted to make sure?
Oh, no, what I would want to set up is a revocable trust. Really, the only thing that he does not want to do is die intestate or die just having a will. His assets would end up going the way he wants them to go, but we would have a lot of costs getting them there.
Okay, but there was one item you said you would not want to set up. And it wasn't a trust we were talking about. It was can't remember the term that you used. I just wanted to write it down.
I'm not sure. The only thing I would not discuss with him unless I really understood his assets are irrevocable trust.
Mm-hmm. And for the sake of the audience that may be new to that term, revocable, irrevocable, what's the difference?
Yeah, revocable is where the person creating the trust can change that trust, amend the trust at will. It's until they're incapacitated or pass away, they have complete control over it. Irrevocable is when you can't change it. And you generally saw irrevocable trust in creditor protection and in life insurance situations. Mm-hmm. If I ever set up an irrevocable trust for a client, you'll hear me say that word 50 times. I want to absolutely make sure the client understands that once they leave the office, they can't change it.
Okay. And we always hear questions on all the attorney shows on this great station, News 96.5, about people who say, well, Grandpa set up a trust down there in Florida. He didn't put anything in it.
Right. And I see that a lot. And, I encourage, what I tell clients when I'm sitting there, it's sort of like me going out and buying a client a brand new car. Let's say I go and buy them this new Cadillac, and it's beautiful, and it's sitting in their driveway. Until we put gas in it, it does not run. And that's with a trust. Until we fund a trust, the trust does not work the way that it should. You've just spent a lot of money on a document that's not going to serve its purpose.
So in other words, to put something into the trust, do you just say, here's my deed, here's my, here's the title to my car, and all the documents, and then you as the lawyer would somehow incorporate those into the trust.
Correct. It's called funding the trust, and it depends on the type of the asset. For example, real estate, I would prepare a deed transferring title into the trust. If it was a bank account, I would go to the financial institution, and we would change the name of the account to the trust account. If it was life insurance, I'd change either the owner or the beneficiary. If it was a car, I would transfer the title. So we would make the trust the owner.
All right, very good. It's 18 past the hour. We're always watching the news 24 hours a day, and right now with all the unrest in the country and the nation and the world, with all of this, these terror cells and all this sort of activity going on, and the terrorism, and George Zimmerman right here at home, we got to keep an eye on things. So our newsroom is very busy today doing that. We have people in the field, people in the room, and we are going to give you 3 big things you need to know right now on News 96.5. Hey, welcome back to the show. Yeah, this is called Law 2020. It comes to you courtesy of the BCN Law Firm. Now, you can reach out to them anytime at 855-LAW-2020, 855-LAW-2020. How do you translate that, Rob? Well, it's 855-529-2020, 855-529-2020. Offices Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and the Villages. How about that? And all the offices are flourishing, things are busy, and really under your roof, there are attorneys of every discipline, right, Wade?
Absolutely. We have 11 attorneys now, and we handle everything other than immigration, but we have a wonderful immigration attorney right in Lake County that we work with, and some intellectual property matters. Other than that, we cover it. So if you have any legal needs, give us a call.
I imagine, too, right before we get to John with his eviction advice, I imagine, too, you might have had some calls this week from same-sex couples who were deciding to take the plunge and said, hey, I want to make sure all the paperwork's in order. I want to make sure that, we're doing this. We know the emotional side's taken care of. Now we want to make sure that all the wills, all the paperwork and everything, just like anybody else, but that's a whole new experience this week.
It is, and we did. We had quite a few calls, and, I have quite a few clients that were looking forward to this day. Mm-hmm. And, I sit down with all of my clients, and especially those clients now who can get married, and we discussed what rights you have as a spouse, that you did not have previously. And, in the estate area, there's quite a few significant rights that a spouse has. And it's pretty amazing.
And I heard a number of couples this week that were espousing, forgive the pun, that they now felt like there was somebody who could help them make the health surrogate questions and answers. And they felt very reassured in that.
It is. It's amazing. And, a lot of my friends, they've been together longer than most other couples have, 20 and 30 years, and did not have certain rights. And I'm so glad that they do have those rights now.
There you go. So Florida joins the pack. And now we go to John. John, we want to thank you for holding for 15 minutes. What is your question about, please?
Okay. I'd like to find out about eviction of a significant other, and also the dissolution of a significant other relationship. If it's a bona fide Orange County significant other relationship, then I need to find out about the dissolution of that, as well as eviction of the significant other. I'd like to listen on the radio.
Yeah, John, let me ask you a question. Is that significant other your wife, or is it a girlfriend or a boyfriend?
The significant other is a girlfriend.
Okay. Well, the first thing is pretty easy. To get rid of them from a relationship standpoint, you just have a conversation with her. That's real easy. Evicting them may be a little more difficult. Is she living with you?
Yes, and there's an official significant other relationship through the Orange County court system.
Well, the only significant relationship you can have is if you're married. If you're not married, Florida does not recognize common law marriage. So y'all are, in a relationship, and ending that relationship is pretty easy if that's what you want to do. Getting her out of the house may be a little more difficult.
And that would involve what?
An eviction. Well, the first thing I'd ask her to leave. Usually if they're
that's not working. So
right.
Is it ejectment or eviction?
Eviction.
30 days, 90 days?
Well, usually if you don't have a lease, you get 30-day notice. What I'd first do is, give a 3-day notice. There's always ways of encouraging people. If a relationship's that bad, they usually want to leave.
That's not the case, sir.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll tell you what, John, what I would do, give me a call on Monday and let me get you with Brian Monk, who does our family law, and we can help you out there. And if you still want to get her out tomorrow, we'll see what we can do to help with that.
An estimate on eviction process?
Yeah, let me ask you, do you rent an apartment or do you own a home?
Single-family residence, Orange County.
And you own the home?
Yes, sir.
Is she on title?
Absolutely not.
Okay, then, yeah, you do have certain rights. So give me a call tomorrow, and we'll see what we can help you do.
All right, John, thank you so much for the call. And you might want to follow up by calling the office at 855-LAW-2020. That's 855 toll-free 529-2020, 855-529-2020. There's another number you also might want to use, and that is 352-394-2103. That's 352-394-2103. We're going to be taking a break right now. If you have any questions for Wade Boyette of the BCN law firm, that stands for Boyette, Cummins, and Nalos, we would be more than happy to entertain that question at 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696. You can text us at 21232. We are live today on a day when a lot of people are getting ready to crank over that TV and watch football, but you know what? You can watch football and also listen to this station at the same time. It's an amazing multimedia experience. You'll love it. 855-297-9696. Text us 21232. Don't forget, tomorrow morning when you wake up, make sure that radio's on News 96.5 to get to work on time without any traffic hassles, weather hassles, or anything else with Joe Kelly and the All News Morning Crew, 5 until 9. We'll be back right here on News 96.5. Welcome back. The show is called Law 2020, brought your way by the BCN law firm. That is Boyette, Cummins, and Nalos. You can join the program right now. I have all open lines right now at 855-529-2020. That is Law 2020, 855-LAW 2020. And they have offices in Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and the Villages. And as we were just saying, without giving out names, if you are selling or buying a business, you can always use BCN Law Firm to help you through the paperwork, the closing, and make sure everybody gets what they're due. Here's a text for Wade Boyette. If I own a firearm but get convicted of a felony, what happens to the firearm I own? What do you think?
You're not supposed to own or possess firearms if you're a convicted felon.
Right.
So I would think you'd need to get rid of the firearm.
Wow.
I don't know that law. If you want me to look into it, but yeah, if you're a convicted felon, you're not supposed to own firearms. So I don't think there's a grandfathered rule that says if you have 10 firearms around the house, you can continue owning those firearms. I think you have to get rid of the firearms.
Mm-hmm. Here's one. This is interesting stuff. I have an easement on my property that I want to restrict access to because the general public just goes onto the easement. Can I legally block an easement?
The general answer is no. What type of easement is it? Who created the easement? If you created the easement and you gave the easement to someone else, we would need to know what type. Is it an access easement? If it's an access easement, then you could restrict it to the person that you gave the easement to. Mm-hmm. But that question, I'd need to know what type of an easement it is and who actually granted the easement. But generally, no, you cannot block an easement.
Is the most common type usually a utility that is setting aside that land?
That's what I usually see is a lot of utility easements and subdivisions that, people will go and they'll put up a fence and they can do that. But if that truck needs to come through, they can destroy that fence and take that fence down to get to, where they can repair what they need to repair.
Ouch. But you hear that from time to time.
I hear that quite often.
Yeah. So, in other words, when you get your survey, you should put your fence on your property line, not the middle of the easement.
You put it on your property line, or be willing and understanding. And generally, it never comes up. But, if they need to get through that easement, they can.
All right, very good. And we are taking your calls right now. We'd love to have you call at 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696. Text us at 21232, 21232. So right before the break, we were talking about new family structures here in Florida and a lot of things moving in that direction. And even post-ceremony, would it be a good idea to just have two people come in and just say, all right, when we were living together, this was our home, this was our cars, this was our stuff. Now we're married. What rights does everybody have? What is in everybody's name?
Absolutely. I would recommend just coming in and let's just go over some of the basic rights that you have now since you are recognized as spouses in Florida. Mm-hmm. And let's just cover some of the basics from an estate standpoint. One thing that a spouse has in Florida is what's called an elective share right, meaning I cannot disinherit my spouse unless there's a prenup or a postnup. So if I do disinherit my spouse can file a claim against the estate claiming 1/3 of my assets. Mm-hmm. So if you're now recognized as a spouse and that one spouse dies, but they've left all of their assets to a nephew or a niece or to another friend, you as a spouse can come in and file a claim against that estate and file a claim against 1/3 of the assets of the estate.
And tell me, clear up the air here. The two lived together and they probably were making money on something or deciding let's have this and sell this and buy that, and money's going back and forth. But the rules are totally changed now that they're married from now on. At some point when they go for a dissolution, was the starting line the day of the marriage?
It's what they brought into the marriage. But if they brought it in together, then that's going to be something that attorneys like Brian Monk are going to have to deal with. Those are tough issues. You've had a couple that were together for 20 years and cohabitating, accumulating assets together, and now they get married. How do you differentiate the assets? I think it's impossible.
And are you getting any questions from anybody? One of the first things that occurred to my mind the other night when I heard that this was all going to go through was, all right, these people need to be very, very up to speed with sitting down with any member of the BCN law firm and explained what the true meaning of the Homestead Act is. And it's a lot more than $25,000. It means survivorship and a lot of rights, right?
Absolutely. Well, two things. One, Rob, back to the last question. We've only seen marriages now that are a couple of days old. Yeah. I hope they don't come into my office already talking dissolution.
Well, let's not do that.
That would not be good. So let's not talk too much about dissolution questions yet. Let's let it season for a couple of weeks at least.
But arguably, now this is kind of taking that sting off of January, because you wouldn't be the first attorney to sit across from me in the studio and tell me that of the traditional old type of marriage, that January is the biggest month to get that divorce.
Absolutely. You're done with the holidays and you're trying to get it done before you have to buy that Valentine's Day gift. There's a lot of, what we may see is a couple of couples come in and talk about annulment. That you may see. They got caught up in the hype. Things didn't work out well. Mm-hmm. So, it's going to be interesting. Hope not. I hope every couple that does get married stays happily married forever, and that's what we always hope.
Well, my biggest concern when this all came down was there have been so many couples that have been living together, and that's their choice, no problem there, but that they might have been so enthralled in the change of the law that they went ahead and went down there to City Hall and got the marriage, but didn't think about the documents that go along with that this is also now a business partnership.
Right. What the repercussions of actually getting married are. And, you just brought up Homestead. And let's talk, generally, like the caller earlier that had a girlfriend. He said, I own the house. What are my rights as the homeowner? Well, he has different rights as a boyfriend than a spouse would have. He can ask the girlfriend to leave. The girlfriend would have no legal rights in that home. But a spouse, You cannot ask a spouse. You can ask the spouse to leave, but that spouse, as long as you're married, is going to have a life estate interest in that home. So you're not going to be able to sell the house, mortgage the house. That spouse is going to have certain rights the moment you get married.
So if one of the members of a same-sex couple, and they've gotten married this week, and one of them, they've agreed that, John, you know, your kids from your previous marriage are going to have this home when you die. But that partner now has a life estate in the house, right, because of the marriage.
That's correct. So that the kids will not be able to get that house now until the new partner, the new spouse.
That's going to throw some
away.
families for some pretty big loops here.
That's going to create the need, and it definitely creates the need for estate planning for the couples to revisit their estate planning. Hopefully they already had estate planning done. Now they need to come in and let's readdress it because of the new issues and new hurdles and new opportunities they have.
Healthcare surrogates, end-of-life issues, all that kind of stuff, which they now have the rights to do.
Health insurance,
another
yes. Big one. Life insurance, retirement plans. There's so many issues that are out there.
All right, John, how can we help you?
Oh, I was just curious. I own 2 adjoining properties in Titusville. I had the properties joined legally at the courthouse, and I was wondering about how much I should expect to pay to have those properties, they're residential properties, how much I would expect to pay to have them surveyed for property lines.
Yeah, John, and I'm not a surveyor, but we do a lot of real estate closings, and so we help clients from that standpoint. And so we work with surveyors on a regular basis, and the average cost that I see for a residential survey is between $250 and $300. So I would assume you're going to pay probably in the neighborhood of $300.
I appreciate your time, sir.
Hey, thanks, John. You have a great day.
Hey, Greg, if you can hold on, you have a will question, and we are going to come back and talk to you first thing after we get 3 big things you need to know. Hey, welcome back. This is Law 2020, brought to you by BCN Law Firm. That's Boyette, Cummins, and Nalos. And we're taking your calls right now at 855-297-9696. Wherever you are in Central Florida, there is a BCN office just waiting for you for a few minutes of free consultation. Nice people. The people at the BCN Law Firm are just like your best friends. Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and the Villages. You can reach them anytime. 855-LAW-2020. That's 855-529-2020. Greg, you've been waiting a while. What's on your mind, buddy?
Yes, we are going to file my father's will tomorrow, and he does not have any probate assets or any debts. So as I understand it, when we file the will, we don't also have to petition for probate. Is that correct?
That is, I'm assuming, Greg, your dad did pass away?
Yes.
Yeah, all you have to do is you just file the will. You're not opening or petitioning to a court to establish a probate because there's no probatable assets.
Right, yes.
And no, so there's nothing to do other than I would record the death certificate and you can file the will, and that would be all you need to do.
Okay, and I was looking at their website, the clerk. Is there going to be a fee just to file the will?
There's recording cost but it's going to be very nominal.
It's not going to be the fee that they charge you when they petition to open a probate, right?
Absolutely not.
Okay, well, that sounds great. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Greg. Sorry to hear about your dad.
And Greg,
thank you for saying that.
And Greg, if you want any follow-up, the guys and the gals down there at the BCN Law Firm be more than happy to help you. 855-LAW-2020, 855-529-2020. And I imagine there's a lot of cases when out-of-state descendants of somebody who passes in Florida, probably this state more than any other, come down and need to hook up with a very good, reputable, and nice attorney that's going to walk them through it.
Absolutely. And a lot of times it's just general questions, just like he had. And please pick up the phone and give us a call because I love it where I can answer a client's questions simply in a few minutes where they don't have to go in and pay a lot of money for some attorney. Just sit there and give them a consultation for things that they could take care of in minutes.
All right, very good. Let's get to Mike. And Mike, real quickly, what do you got?
Oh, hi.
Yeah, you're on. Quick.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm married. We live here in Florida. The house here in Kissimmee is in my wife's name, and I still have 2 properties in Pennsylvania that are in my name. We had just gotten married in 2008. So I'm wondering what would happen if something would happen to either one of us.
If something happens to, and the house here in Florida is your homestead, correct, Mike?
Right.
Well,
Yes.
okay.
My business address is still Pennsylvania, but I live here.
Okay, well, if your wife passed away, if you passed away, your wife's going to continue owning the home. If your wife passes away, you're going to have a right to live in that home for your lifetime.
Okay. What about, I think there might be maybe a $20,000 mortgage left on the house.
The mortgage definitely has to get paid.
Okay, so I would have I would be able to pay that off myself?
You could. Well, I don't know if I would want to completely pay it off. Remember, you would only have a life estate interest in the home. So does your wife, do y'all have any kids together?
No, we do not. We each have a child separately.
Okay. And so, what I would do is with $20,000 mortgage, I'd continue paying those nominal mortgage fees, payments.
Oh, sure. But I'm wondering about the end of the mortgage, and would that be transferred to me, or what would happen if something happened to her?
No, you would only have a life estate interest, so title would not transfer to you. Only a life estate interest would transfer to you.
I see. So what happens then if something happens to me? What happens to the property?
It goes to her child.
I see. Okay.
And I'm saying that assuming, she does not have a will or other estate planning documents or other directives. Yeah. So I'm making sort of a general statement, but it would depend on depends on her estate planning.
Yeah, I just didn't want the state to take it.
Nope. Any prenup? Is there any prenup or postnup?
No, we do not have a prenup, either one of us. And I know you can't answer the question about Pennsylvania, but I was wondering about the Florida house here. Okay. Well, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good day, Mike.
Okay, I think that we've got Sally, but I'm not sure whether we're going to have time to get her on or not. We got about 2.5 minutes. Let me give you the law firm's connection real quick. If you want to connect with the BCN law firm, it's real easy. It's 855-LAW-2020. 855-LAW-2020. And Nick, Tim. Let's go with Sally. What's your question real quick? We have 2 minutes to spend together.
I have an estate that was left to me. It's I had to take it to probate, and 3 years later, neighbor is trying to encroach on the property, and I need to know whether or not I have any rights to decline the neighbor's claims.
Yes, Sally, real quick, that doesn't sound like an estate issue. That sounds like a real estate issue. If the estate's been closed and you now are legal, you have legal title to that property. If they encroach on that property, that's considered trespassing. It depends on, so we would definitely look at it from a real estate standpoint and see what rights do you have in that property, which if you're the fee simple owner, you have the exclusive rights. So,
well, unfortunately, he sued the estate before I closed it, and I've had to keep it open to fight this issue.
Oh, so y'all are in a civil litigation over certain rights.
Over it basically amounts to an easement portion of the property.
I see. So, I could tell you what, if you wanted me to, I could sit down and look at where you are in litigation and what you're looking at facing, what I think the outcome would be. Just give me a call on Monday.
And you can use this number to connect, Sally, if you will, 855-LAW-2020. That's 855-529-2020. And an alternate number would be 352-394-2103. The BCN law firm, Boyette, Cummins, and Nalos, with offices in Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and the Villages. And who you pulling for today there, bud?
Definitely Green Bay. I'm not a Cowboys fan, right. So Green Bay, and I would love to see Peyton Manning end up in the Super Bowl and win one more. It's hard not to be a Peyton Manning fan.
And Denver's a great place. All right, we're going to continue to ask the experts all day long. Financial experts coming up next.